No one was ready for this. At World's End, the atmosphere inside the arena felt electric, but uneasy, like the crowd knew something was about to snap. Camera flashes exploded. Chants echoed. Jon Moxley's music hit, and instantly the mood changed. This wasn't the Moxley fans remembered. This was colder, slower, focused. He walked through the smoke with purpose, eyes locked, jaw clenched, like a man who had already decided the ending. The commentators sold it as just another main event, but the audience felt the tension. Every step Moxley took toward the ring carried weight. He wasn't here to entertain. He was here to prove something. As he entered the ring, he didn't pose. He didn't soak in cheers. He simply stared across the canvas, breathing heavy, waiting. The match began with brutality. Every strike echoed. Every slam felt personal. The crowd reacted with gasps instead of cheers. This wasn't flashy wrestling. This was violence disguised as competition. Moxley absorbed punishment, smiled through pain, and kept moving forward. Each minute dragged on, making fans believe the impossible was coming. Then came the turning point. One mistake. One opening. The referee counted. The bell rang. The arena froze. It looked finished. The commentators declared it over. The crowd sat stunned, unsure whether to boo or accept what they'd just seen. On paper, Jon Moxley had lost, but something felt wrong. Moxley didn't roll out of the ring. He didn't argue. He didn't collapse. He slowly pushed himself to his knees and stared at the referee. The camera zoomed in on his face, and that's when everyone noticed it. He was smiling. Not frustrated. Not defeated. Smiling. The crowd murmured. The commentary desk went quiet. Moxley stood up, leaned against the ropes, and laughed under his breath. This wasn't the end. This was the setup. The audience realized they had been fooled, and the energy shifted instantly. Backstage officials were already reacting. You could see confusion in their faces. Security whispered. Producers shouted into headsets. Something had gone off script, and nobody knew what came next. Moxley grabbed a microphone. The arena went silent. He didn't speak right away. He let the moment breathe. Let the tension rise. Let the world wait. And that was when everyone understood. World's End wasn't about winning or losing. It was about sending a message. History has moments like this, where silence is louder than explosions. Fans at home leaned closer to their screens, sensing the shift. Social media started buzzing in real time, confusion turning into shock. This wasn't chaos by accident. This was control. Jon Moxley had everyone exactly where he wanted them, questioning reality, questioning rules, questioning authority. World's End had only just begun, and the most dangerous part wasn't what already happened. It was what Moxley was about to do next, with the entire wrestling world watching, waiting, and holding its breath. Nothing would ever feel the same again after this night ended forever in wrestling history books worldwide today alone. The silence didn't last long. It shattered the second Jon Moxley raised the microphone. His eyes scanned the arena, not with anger, but with calm confidence. The crowd waited for an explanation, but Moxley gave them something far more dangerous: truth. He spoke slowly, every word heavy, every pause deliberate. He said this wasn't about a loss. This was about exposing a system built on control, not competition. The commentators tried to regain order, but even their voices sounded unsure. This wasn't in the rundown. This wasn't cleared. Cameras caught referees at ringside nervously looking toward the stage. Moxley leaned into the ropes and laughed again, a laugh that sent chills through the audience. He reminded everyone that rules only matter when everyone agrees to follow the man tonight. He didn't. Suddenly, the atmosphere changed. The crowd erupted, not in cheers or boos but disbelief. Moxley dropped the mic and stepped back into the center of the ring. The referee tried to stop him, raising his hands, pleading. Moxley brushed past him like he wasn't even there. One move later, the referee was down. The bell rang repeatedly, useless noise in a building that had lost control. Security rushed in. Officials spilled from the back. But Moxley didn't run. He stood tall, daring them to step inside the ropes. One by one they hesitated. The audience roared louder with each second of chaos. This wasn't rebellion. This was dominance. Backstage cameras cut to executives watching in shock. Producers shouted orders. The headset chatter grew frantic. This was supposed to be contained. Instead, it was exploding live. Moxley paced the ring, blood trickling from his forehead, smiling wider than before. He knew exactly what he was doing. Then came the moment no one expected. The music hit. For a split second, the crowd thought it was a mistake. But when the entrance screen lit up, the arena erupted. This wasn't planned. This wasn't safe. This was dangerous. Moxley didn't turn around immediately. He waited. Let the reaction peak. Then slowly he faced the stage. The look on his face changed. Not fear. Not surprise. Recognition. This wasn't an interruption. This was an invitation. Two forces colliding in real time, with no referee, no authority, and no safety net. The crowd stood on its feet, phones raised, voices screaming. Commentary stopped trying to explain and simply reacted. This was bigger than a match. This was bigger than a storyline. Moxley stepped toward the ropes as officials begged him to stop. He ignored them. The rules were gone. The format was broken. This was wrestling stripped down to its most dangerous form, uncontrolled emotion in front of millions. As the figure from the stage moved closer, security backed away. They knew better. Everyone did. The camera zoomed in on Moxley's face one more time. His lips moved, barely audible but clear enough to read. Now we begin. And just like that, World's End stopped being an event. It became a warning. The figure finally stepped through the curtain, and the reaction was instant chaos. The arena exploded as if the roof had been ripped off. This was not rumor. This was not speculation. This was real. A presence the wrestling world never expected to see in this moment, at this event, under these circumstances. The commentary team stumbled over their words, trying to process what their eyes were seeing while the crowd screamed non-stop. Jon Moxley stood motionless in the ring, soaking it all in. He didn't rush. He didn't attack. He waited. That alone told the story. This wasn't panic. This was confidence. He had planned for this. He wanted this. The cameras caught his slow nod, almost respectful, like two warriors acknowledging destiny. As the newcomer reached ringside, officials flooded the area, trying desperately to restore order. Security guards formed a wall, but the crowd booed them out of existence. This was bigger than them. This was history demanding to happen. Moxley leaned through the ropes and shouted something off mic. The guards hesitated. One step back, then another. The ring was clear. The two stood face to face under the brightest lights possible. No bell, no introductions, no rules. The tension was unbearable. Fans held their breath. Then it happened. One punch. The sound echoed like a gunshot. The arena detonated. Everything broke loose. The brawl spilled across the ring, into the corners, onto the mat. Fists flew. Bodies crashed. The crowd chanted both names in dueling thunder. This wasn't polished. This was raw. Commentary screamed that this was completely unsanctioned, completely illegal, and completely unstoppable. Moxley took punishment like a man possessed. Blood poured, but he laughed through it. Every strike only fueled him. He fired back harder, dragging his opponent into deep waters. This wasn't about winning. This was about survival. Officials tried to pull them apart and failed. One by one they were shoved aside. Backstage monitors showed stunned faces. Wrestlers stopped warming up. Legends watching from home would later admit they couldn't look away. This was one of those moments. The kind people talk about years later and say, "I remember where I was." Then came the impossible moment. Moxley reached down and pulled something from beneath the ring. The crowd gasped. The commentators yelled in disbelief. This crossed a line no one thought would be crossed on this stage. The referee screamed for the bell, but there was no one left to ring it. Moxley stood over his fallen opponent, chest heaving, eyes wild. He raised the object high. The crowd was split cheers, boos, shock, all colliding at once. This was madness. This was rebellion. This was history being written in real time. But instead of swinging, Moxley stopped. He dropped it. The silence returned. He grabbed the microphone again, blood dripping onto the mat. His voice was calm, almost soft. He said this wasn't about destruction. This was about freedom. About tearing down walls. About proving that the impossible only stays impossible until someone is willing to go further than everyone else. The crowd erupted again, louder than ever. Jon Moxley had done it. He had turned World's End into something no one could control. And the fallout was just beginning. The cameras struggled to keep up as the scene unraveled. In the ring, Jon Moxley stood alone, breathing heavy, blood-streaked and unbothered, while officials finally managed to clear the chaos. The crowd was still buzzing, voices hoarse, emotions running wild. No one sat down. No one blinked. Everyone knew they had just witnessed something that wasn't supposed to happen. The broadcast cut backstage, and that's where the real panic showed. Producers were yelling. Headsets were ripped off. Security sprinted through corridors. Wrestlers stood frozen near the gorilla position, watching monitors in disbelief. Some smiled. Some looked concerned. Others looked inspired. Whatever side they were on, one thing was clear: the industry had just shifted. Commentary returned, but their tone had changed completely. Gone was the polished delivery. This was raw reaction. They openly questioned how this was allowed to happen, what it meant for the future, and whether any authority figure truly had control anymore. They didn't have answers because there were none. Back inside the arena, Moxley slowly exited the ring. Fans reached out, desperate to touch him, to be part of the moment. He didn't slap hands. He didn't acknowledge the cheers. He walked through them like a storm passing through a city, leaving destruction and awe behind. The camera followed every step until he disappeared behind the curtain. The moment he crossed backstage, the atmosphere flipped again. Officials confronted him. Voices were raised, fingers pointed. But Moxley didn't stop walking. He didn't argue. He didn't defend himself. That silence spoke louder than any promo ever could. He knew what he'd done, and he knew they couldn't undo it. Word spread instantly. Phones lit up. Social media exploded. Clips went viral before the show even ended. Fans argued online: was this genius or insanity? Was it rebellion or evolution? Wrestling forums crashed under the traffic. Everyone had an opinion, but nobody had control of the narrative anymore. Jon Moxley did. Reports began surfacing almost immediately. Emergency meetings, closed-door discussions, damage control. Executives scrambling to reassure partners while secretly realizing this moment couldn't be erased. You can fine a man. You can suspend him. But you can't unring a bell like this. Even rival locker rooms felt it. Wrestlers watching from home sent texts, made calls, and asked the same question: did that really just happen? Legends would later admit they felt jealous, inspired, and threatened all at once. Because moments like this don't come around often, and when they do, they change the business. The final shot of the night wasn't a replay or a highlight package. It was a still frame. Jon Moxley standing under the arena lights, face covered in blood, eyes calm, almost peaceful. No title, no victory graphic, just a man who broke the system and walked away. World's End was over. But the consequences? They were just beginning. Days after World's End, the shock still hadn't worn off. Fans replayed the footage again and again, searching for meaning in every look, every pause, every decision Jon Moxley made that night. Analysts tried to explain it. Veterans tried to downplay it. But deep down, everyone knew the truth. This wasn't just a moment. This was a line in the sand. Jon Moxley didn't return to make headlines. He didn't come back to chase applause or gold. He came back to remind the wrestling world what happens when someone refuses to be controlled. World's End wasn't about rules being broken. It was about illusions being shattered. The illusion that outcomes are fixed. The illusion that chaos can be contained. The illusion that rebellion can be punished away. Locker rooms across the industry felt the ripple effect. Wrestlers started taking risks again. Promos sounded more real. Matches felt more urgent. Because when one man proves the impossible is possible, everyone else is forced to raise their level or be left behind. Moxley didn't just shock fans. He challenged every performer watching. Executives tried to spin it. Statements were released. Fines were rumored. Consequences were teased. But fans didn't care about corporate reactions. They cared about authenticity. And at World's End, Jon Moxley was the most authentic force in wrestling. He didn't ask permission. He took the moment. Years from now, people will ask where the shift began, where wrestling stopped playing it safe again, where unpredictability returned. And the answer will be simple. It began the night Jon Moxley stood in the ring, bloodied, smiling, and refused to let the story end the way it was written. This is why crowds reacted the way they did. This is why social media exploded. This is why World's End will never be remembered as just another event. It became a reference point, a warning, a reminder that wrestling at its core is about emotion, and nobody controls emotion better than Jon Moxley. And now, the biggest question isn't what happened. It's what happens next. Does Moxley disappear again, leaving chaos in his wake? Does the system strike back? Or does this open the door to an era where anything can happen at any moment? One thing is guaranteed. The wrestling world will never look at impossible the same way again. If moments like this are why you love wrestling, if unpredictability, rebellion, and raw emotion are what keep you watching, then you already know this story is far from over. Like this video if World's End shocked you. Comment what you think Jon Moxley's next move will be. Subscribe for more WWE-style breakdowns, shocking returns, and moments that change wrestling forever. Because when wrestling breaks the rules, we'll be right here to break it all down.